Michael Harrison checked his watch, 6:47 p.m. He was already late. His 8-year-old daughter Emma was waiting at Mrs. Patterson's house, probably pressing her little nose against the window, counting the minutes until her dad pulled into the driveway. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of small moments to change lives, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness True Stories. Also, tell us in the comments where in the world are you watching from. Michael was a maintenance worker at Hartwell Industries, a man who fixed broken pipes and flickering lights for people who never bothered to learn his name. He drove a battered 2009 Honda Civic, packed his own lunch every day, and stretched every dollar like it was made of rubber. Life was tight, but Emma's smile made it worth every sacrifice. He turned onto Route 9, the shortcut he always took through the industrial stretch. When he saw it, a silver Mercedes, crumpled against the guardrail, flames crawling up from the hood like hungry fingers. His foot hit the brake before his brain even formed the thought. He had 30 seconds to decide. Drive home safe to Emma or stop. He stopped. Michael jumped out of his car, heart hammering, smoke already burning his eyes. The Mercedes had folded against the barrier at a sharp angle, and through the cracked window, he could see a woman slumped over the steering wheel, dark hair covering her face, completely unconscious. The flames were licking closer to the passenger cabin now, and the smell of burning fuel made his stomach drop. He didn't think about the risk. He didn't think about Emma waiting at Mrs. Patterson's. He grabbed a rusted tire iron from his trunk, shattered the driver's window in 2 swings, and reached inside. The woman was heavier than she looked, dead weight in his arms, and the heat was becoming unbearable. His jacket caught a small ember and began to smoke. He pulled harder, yanking her free from the seatbelt with one desperate tug, and half-carried, half-dragged her 20 feet from the car just as the engine released. A violent crack, and the flames doubled in size. He laid her gently on the grass embankment, his hands trembling, his lungs burning. She was breathing, barely but breathing. He called 911, pulled off his jacket, and pressed it under her head. Her face, now visible in the fading light, was striking. Strong features, mid-30s, a thin scar on her chin that somehow made her look even more composed, even unconscious. The ambulance arrived in 4 minutes. The paramedics took over, and a police officer took Michael's statement. He waited until they told him she was stable. Then he quietly got back in his Honda and drove to pick up Emma, because the pipes at the Hartwell Industries East Wing weren't going to fix themselves in the morning. And heroes don't always get to feel like heroes when the adrenaline wears off and the bills are still due. He didn't tell anyone. He didn't post about it. He just went home, made Emma mac and cheese, helped her with her spelling homework, and fell asleep on the couch with her feet in his lap. 2 weeks later, Michael was summoned to the executive floor of Hartwell Industries, a place he had only ever visited to fix the air conditioning. He walked out of the elevator in his work uniform, confused and a little nervous, into a room full of people in expensive suits. At the head of the conference table sat Richard Hartwell himself, the CEO, a man Michael had seen exactly twice from a distance. Beside him was a woman in a charcoal blazer. She had dark hair, strong features, and a thin scar on her chin. Michael's breath caught in his chest. She looked at him, and her eyes filled before she even spoke a word. Her name was Sophia Hartwell, 34 years old, VP of Operations, and Richard Hartwell's only daughter. She had been driving home from a client dinner when a tire blew out and she lost control. The doctors told her that if someone hadn't pulled her from the car when they did, she would not have survived the fuel fire that followed. She had spent a week in the hospital asking about the man who saved her. It took another week to trace the 911 call back to a maintenance worker named Michael Harrison. Richard Hartwell stood up first. He didn't offer a handshake. He walked around the table and hugged Michael, like a man who almost lost the most important person in his life, because he had. What followed changed Michael's world quietly but completely. He was promoted to facilities director, a role that came with a real salary, benefits, and a future. Emma got enrolled in the school she had been on the waiting list for, but the part nobody expected, the part that didn't fit into any corporate gesture or press release, was that Sophia kept coming back. Not out of obligation, but out of genuine connection. She came to Emma's school play. She brought soup when Emma had a cold. She sat at Michael's kitchen table and laughed at his terrible coffee. She said once quietly that she had spent her whole life being Richard, Hartwell's daughter, and not knowing what family actually felt like until she sat in that kitchen. Michael didn't have the words for what was growing between all of them. But Emma did. She called it simple. She called it home. One moment of courage, one choice made in 30 seconds on a dark road. And it rewrote everything, not just for Michael, but for a woman who had survived the fire and finally found somewhere warm to stay. If this story moved your heart the way it moved mine, please give it a like. Share it with someone who needs to believe in goodness today. And subscribe to Kindness True Stories, because the world has more heroes than the news will ever show you, and we are here to find every single one of them.